Oh, it's okay.
I borrow one of your ballpoint pens.
Be careful borrowing pens. You'll really get beat up for that one.
Is that right?
At least I won't be alone now. This table's smaller than the others.
Yeah.
Oh, really? It's closer to me than you normally would be. Oh,
Wow.
I liked it when I was
I'd say next few most of the time. I know that's 2 years. I think so. But we had that bigger table over there. So we had.
He's gonna work in an inferiority complex.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Hello. How's it
Hey,
going?
well, how are you?
Good to see you.
Feels later.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
See, it wasn't great.
Our cameras. Not really that matters.
Hi, how are you?
Hello. Oh, but you are.
Had a little finger cutting incident. Yeah, everybody's okay? I
Good.
got blood on my shirt and then I had to go back upstairs. We're just telling us that on the way out, I'm like, on a Sunday afternoon, when nobody's doing anything, these things don't happen, right?
Right.
When you have 20 minutes
Oh,
to
yeah.
be somewhere, that's
Right,
gonna happen.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I was on my way to a meeting yesterday and I had a flat tire.
Oh.
Okay, think positive, Jen, think positive. You want to do the board picture now?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Not particularly.
Okay, you all have to be together somewhere.
Well,
Yeah, Scott, that's fine.
Are we standing, sitting,
I think the girl should sit in the front.
like we did last time?
Yes, chief.
That would be the women.
You know what?
Obviously what he meant.
Where's Esther? I was-
Can you move a little bit?
Yes,
I was
you
keeping
want
my
that?
mouth shut on that one.
Does she have a chair?
Oh, nice job, nice job. Somebody call it coordination.
Well, we should have put the blue.
Can I get someplace else? I just got a coat on. You're too short to be on the.
Oh, man.
Should we unmask or what?
Yeah.
Just quickly, I'll be quick. Ready? Let's go. Nice, nice.
Awesome. Thank you.
Gee, look at that.
Very nice.
Hey, would you do that?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Oh.
You're gonna keep saying those things, aren't you?
Yes.
Yes.
Because in 3 years, I want you to remind me.
Okay, Brian,
So you want me to record it? No, just take,
I can't argue.
Okay.
I don't need to record it.
Oh.
Just to
Okay,
remember.
so I'm going to start the recording.
All right.
And
Recording in progress.
Welcome.
Thanks so much.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
That was the fastest meeting ever. We are out of here.
-1 minute. Okay, and.
Right.
I guess I have Heather and Andy and Esther, maybe we could stand together.
Sure.
Would you take that? You want a video?
Yeah, or.
Oh, yeah, I was taking one on Heather. Do you want a second phone for me?
Send to the New York Times or what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, Heather, raise your right hand. And do you, Heather Seeley and Cooper and Esther Thomas, solemnly swear or affirm that you'll be true and faithful to the state of Vermont, and that you will not directly or indirectly do any act or thing injurious to the Constitution or government thereof? So help you God, or under the pains and penalties of perjury.
I do.
I do. Okay. Do you further solemnly swear or affirm that you'll faithfully execute your duties as an official elected to the select board for the town of Middlebury and will therein do equal right and justice to all persons to the best of your judgment and ability, according to law, so help you God, or under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Excellent. So I have a sheet here for each one of you.
I know.
Thank you.
Oh, congratulations.
Let's see. We each need to state and sign
Sure.
the top and the second part as well.
Thank
That's
you.
Jody.
Very good.
That's her.
Thank you.
That's her.
Thank you. Did you get something?
Recording in progress.
And you do the third?
Correct.
Thanks very much.
And normally I shake your hands, but I'm not doing that yet. So I will just congratulate you on your election.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for running a great election.
Thank you very much for serving.
Okay, now that our new select board members are underway, this is the organizational meeting of the select board, March 8th, 2022. And at this time, I will take nominations for the position of board chair.
I'll nominate Brian Carpenter.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for the position of board chair? Hearing none, we'll have a vote on that. Brian Carpenter for chair of the select board.
Aye.
Thank you. Brian, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you for vote. Next is for vice chair. Seek nominations for vice chair.
I nominate Lindsay Fuentes George. I nominate Lindsay Fuentes George. I second.
No, I talked to her.
Yeah, I didn't ask her until after you said no.
No, I'm going to do it here.
Are you sure?
Because I think you need a lot of time and dedication to do the job. The way the labor shortage and everything, I don't think I'll be able to do this. I'll be happy to support you. Thank you.
I'm more than happy to let somebody else have some leadership opportunities.
Were you interested?
Well, am I interested? No, I'm different.
Okay. Heather and I talked, and Heather was going to defer me to you, Farhan, and after you two talked, she reached out to Lindsay. Yeah, she was talking a couple of weeks ago. We had that discussion last year. Yeah. And so, yeah, let me hear if is everybody ready to vote?
Sure.
Okay, all in favor? of,
Aye.
Lindsay for vice chair, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
So, I would like to recognize you though,
Oh,
Heather, for everything you've done. You've
I'm not
done-
going anywhere.
I know,
Yeah,
but,
There's only one
you
way
know,
I can get away.
I do expect you still to be, chair of the infrastructure.
Oh, yeah.
We have a lot of stuff. Our name is already moved from there.
Madam Vice Chair. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate it. I'm not going anywhere.
I know.
I will still help and support you guys in any way you need it. And I just am excited for Lindsay to have an opportunity to be more a part and do a little bit more leadership with the town, so.
Very gracious of you. Thank you. Next is approval of the agenda.
Now you're stuck with me.
Second.
Okay, three changes from the warrant agenda. We have an updated edition of item 4C, approval of the renewal applications for first, second, and third class liquor licenses, outside consumption permits, and entertainment permits. And we added Otter Creek Brewing Company to that. Agenda item 4D, the consent agenda. Select board letters to Senator Leahy in support of congressionally directed spending requests from Hillsley Library and Middlebury College. And a deletion of the budget report out, including local option taxes, to push to the March 22nd meeting. We don't have all the information. Are there any other requested changes or amendments?
And there is no executive session.
Thank you. Yes. And we aren't quite ready for the executive session, hopefully for the next meeting. Also. So probably your backpacks and sleeping bags for the next meeting.
It's not funny.
Is
Dan's growling over there.
there any other additions or amendments? Okay, here none. All in favor of approving the amended agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Next is approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second,
Moved and seconded. I would like to draw attention to a couple things on the consent agenda. First is the letter of support for the Hillsley Library, request for federal funding for renovation expansion project. Very well written letter and had me sold. I was ready to donate. But it makes a really articulate plea for Senator Leahy to earmark some funding for them and get some funding. So I think that whatever we can do to support that, as every other big project we do where we try to leverage our funds, it would be really good if we can get some. The other is,
Can I say something about that? Yeah, Farhad and I had a catch up with Dana and Joe today about that. And that's pretty exciting. Kathleen has helped Dana. Dana wrote that letter and that would be a huge boost to what we want to accomplish. So she's impressive in her research and what she's done and working directly with Leahy's office. Yeah. Phone calls.
other is support for the college child care proposal. It would be a significant increase in it's one of our top two priorities. We have established the housing and childcare moving forward. Now that we've got through the Bridge and Rail project, really are our next two big lifts. And this is working towards helping solve that. And so those were the two big things I wanted to call. So we have a recommendation, we have a motion and a second. Is there anything else that somebody would like to call attention to or speak to?
I'll just mention that you'll all have some emails going back and forth. Yeah. And let me just echo what Brian said, that the college project around childcare will be a significant impact on the number of slots available in town, will create jobs. It is not, it's not limited to college staff. It will be something that is available to the whole community, and it will make a really sizable impact. And all the people who are driving 20 minutes each way to take their kids to daycare, or 40 minutes, will be in a much better position once we get this off the ground. So they put together something really awesome.
that.
Thank you. Is there anything else? Okay, hearing none, all are in favor of approving the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Citizen comments. Fred, are you here for something that's not on the agenda?
Oh, you got.
Okay. How you doing, Fred?
I'm great.
Good. Is there anybody with a hand raised in the audience?
We do have Leon Smith.
Okay.
Hello, Mr. Smith.
Hello, good evening. Can everyone hear me all right?
You're fine, Leon.
Okay. I would like to once again raise concerns about safety on Bushy's Corner. Not only have the past 2 weeks been eventful with the blasting shaking my home regularly, I recently learned that there's discussions in the Planning Commission and Infrastructure Committee and elsewhere regarding safety on the corner, especially in reference to the proposed bike loop. I'd like to remind the board that safety concerns were raised and largely ignored by the board in their decision to grant a right-of-way and a road access on the corner. To my knowledge, no conditions or restrictions on use or for safety were included with the decision. I look forward to discussing this issue in the Infrastructure Committee on Thursday and elsewhere in the future. I firmly believe that at this time, public funds should not be used or even considered to address safety concerns on the corner made worse by the board's decision. Lastly, in a bit of a preview and an answer to Fred's question, for $375,000, the Conservation Committee, Malt, the town could have bought 105.7 acres at $3,547 per acre, a far better deal than what the board is considering for the Dutton parcel, and acquired the Bushy parcel. But I'll save that and some other comments later for on the Dutton property.
Okay, thank you, Leon. Next is there anybody else with a hand raised?
Mr. Smith, I'm going to lower your hand. And there we go.
Okay. Next is some board organization. First is setting our regular meeting date, and it has been for a long time and has seemed to work well. The second and fourth Tuesday of every month at 7 p.m. Is that still good with everybody? Yeah. It's still good with everybody. I'd seek a motion to establish it.
I'll move to set the select board's regular meeting date and time at the second and fourth Tuesday of each month at 7 p.m.
I second it.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, now, next, a few years ago, we came up with a duty roster which shared the load for
There's a little military in there.
shared the load for the select board expenditure review. And Kathleen has kindly updated that. Way we work it is if you're not going to be available, you can just swap, just reach out to somebody, but whoever's name is on there is responsible to initiate the swap. And make sure-
There's an alternate, so you can reach out to the alternate.
Yeah. So,
And this is just going through the check warrant and making sure that
Yeah.
everything kind of makes sense?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they'll all be, massive files sometimes. And because there's a lot of checks that go out
Sure.
here, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
We're involved before, so.
There's actually some pretty good instructions that Lindsay put together, a couple years ago now, right? That are with the clipboard that are helpful and,
And one of us will sit with you your
if,
first time doing it.
yeah,
Great.
So it would be in order to move to adopt that, if it's good with everybody.
I will move to adopt the 2022 select board expenditure review roster.
I second it.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, those opposed. The next is our select board operating principles. And I don't remember when you generated that, but it was an initiative.
2017.
It was an issue that came out of an offsite, if I remember right, and it was a way for us to remind us and have everybody read it at least once a year, but to have everybody read it and recommit to really understanding the structure of the governance, like, we don't go to department heads and provide guidance or anything. That's Kathleen's job as the manager, that we treat each other respectfully, et cetera. So I would ask for a motion to adopt that and make sure everybody's read it. And we're signing off on that, aren't we, to recommit? So I think we already printed a copy.
I move to adopt the 2022 operating principles of the select board and think that this is an excellent document.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Yeah. Let everybody sign this before we move on. Okay, thank you. Next is to set the newspaper of record. The board has to designate a newspaper of record for publication of all the official notices of the town. Addison Independent is currently our publication of record. I would solicit a motion for A, and if you would still appreciate that, Addison Independent does have the largest readership in our community, so it seems to be the right choice.
So I'll move to designate the Addison Independent as a newspaper of record for the publication of official notices for the town of Middlebury.
I second that.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, next is appointing a delegate and an alternate to the Addison County Solid Waste Management District Board of Supervisors. So our current delegate is now a board member. Are you willing to continue to serve?
I would prefer to become the alternate and let Diane Mott step up to the delegate role. Because of the agreement and having transfer station in Middlebury, the Middlebury delegate is automatically on the executive board. So this is 2 meetings a month, both the executive and the general. And there's a fair bit of action there. They are about to complete a purchase and sales agreement. There's stuff going on. And yeah, I will gladly help Diane get up to speed and serve Dylan from the alternate seat as necessary.
Okay, and Kathleen, when you talked to Diane, did you mention that possibility? Is she willing to
Yes,
step up?
she is willing to step up.
Okay. So I would seek some motions. So start with the motion for the delegate.
I move to appoint Diane Mott as Middlebury's 2022 delegate to the Addison County Solid Waste Management District Board of Supervisors.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
And then I further move to appoint Andy Hooper as Middlebury's 2022 alternate to the Addison County Solid Waste Management District Board of Supervisors.
I second that.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, and the last major thing is appointing our Green Up coordinator. 2021 Green Up Day coordinator Caleb Passa has indicated he is willing to act as our 2022 coordinator if the board is amenable. And is Caleb on? Does he want to say hi or?
He is not
Okay.
but I'm sure that Caleb, having been the Green Up coordinator during 2 years of COVID, is eager to have a real Green Up Day.
I love it.
So I'll move to appoint Carol Beza as Middlebury's cleanup day coordinator for 2022.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Good. So the next is a initial discussion of the staff proposal for revision of certificate of insurance requirement for public assemblage permits. And I read through all this, Kathleen, and understand the recommendation and the idea of having a slush fund to help so that it's not on our, so basically the normal process still continues, so it doesn't go on the town's claims route, but that we would have some funding available for people who could not afford the $100 estimated fee.
Correct.
Is Randy in the
He
audience?
is, and he said that he had a few words. Randy, I'm going to allow you to talk now unless. Hi, Randy.
Yes, am I coming through?
You are.
Yes.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I read through the documents. I think most of you have some idea of how this is being presented. And as I said in my letter of a few days ago or yesterday, I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding. Everything has become focused on the cost of the insurance policy. And that was the initial trigger for my expressing concern. But my deeper concern is about the access to public space more generally and to free speech. And as long as there is this rather formidable obstacle of either getting an insurance policy or getting a workaround policy and filling out the forms, it really is intimidating. I am fairly used to these kinds of bureaucratic things, and I had 3 hours invested in trying to find out if my insurance company would pay before I finally threw up my hands and said, well, maybe I can get an insurance policy for $100. I don't know if I would qualify and if I would deserve, or for that matter, truthfully be seen as needing, subvention by the town. My concern is with the principle of having to get insurance to use public space for which there should be free access. It strikes me as bizarre that we can, dress up to engage in a high-risk activity, playing hockey, and have to wear face masks for something that is on literally the face of it, a high-risk adventure where there's going to be harm. But to go to the town gazebo and do a book reading as an author, I need a $100 insurance policy or a waiver or a workaround to do something that is so inherently unrisky as a book reading. Or if someone wanted to play a violin in the gazebo and give a free concert, they'd have to go through the same gauntlet. So I wrote to you yesterday asking if, instead of acting hastily on this as an insurance liability management issue, if you would consider allowing a group of us to identify the issues, the barriers, and maybe some other alternate paths forward, which would bring down the barriers, which are both economic and social, and quite frankly, psychological, to using free public space.
So I would say that our public assemblage permit application process is very simple. And we turn those right around. Chris English, who doesn't have any specialty knowledge of the software, went on the Vermont League of Cities and Towns website, and within 10 minutes, he had a quote on the policy and was able to obtain that with no difficulty. So I don't think it's a large barrier. I think it addresses Mr. Krakowski's concerns. And I'll leave it at that.
So do you have any data, what other towns do, you require insurance to require some permit, right? I remember we have our Islamic Society in South Burlington and Colchester. And whenever we had to use a park, we had to get an insurance, proof of insurance, regardless if it's ours or we have to buy it for that day. So are there any town that exempt from this?
I haven't
don't
researched that,
recall.
but the Vermont League of Cities and Towns does recommend requiring insurance.
That's what I was thinking.
Actually, if I might correct, if you look carefully at the letter they sent to you, they indicated that it is the discretion and it may well be the choice of a town or municipality to waive such a requirement when it's a small group of people in an activity that is inherently, unrisky.
Understood, Randy, but I would note that if we can waive it in some cases and not waive it in other cases, would that lead to some further charges of discrimination against certain groups? So we thought it would be best to come forward with a policy that applies to everyone and provide some subsidy for those who need it.
Have we talked to this with our town's attorney?
I wanted to get the board's input if this is something we wanted me to pursue or not.
Okay.
Before.
Well, in a perfect world, we wouldn't need this. But in the world we live in, and we need to consider protecting the town. And I think Kathleen's come up with a great method of making it simple and potentially free. I know that in my business, and when we done anything, and we have to have certificates of insurability to a lot of things we used to do in our business, and personally, and with the town, we would have to. So I'm concerned about the liability issues that need to be covered.
Yeah, if your kids play hockey, you need to have insurance. USA Hockey has another layer of insurance on top of there. I'm sure if you sign up for a municipal event like the one in Bristol, so you sign a waiver in case you're injured. Insurance is a fact of life. It's everywhere. And municipalities are quite vulnerable.
So it's just a matter of applying to the town and getting approved. As simple as that, right, Catherine?
I assumed Randy was talking about the outdoor rink, which,
Yeah, I do.
I think you just use that as an example. So
yeah, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
People can use that and they don't get insurance.
is that a sponsored assemblage by somebody? I think
Right, I think that's the difference.
I think when somebody creates an assemblage out there, they're accepting a lot of responsibility how that book reading is going to go. And if somebody gets tossed off the railing, of the gazebo, which is not too far fetched, the town could be held liable there.
Yeah.
And I guess if we could find some way of the person who sponsors the event, if they can accept the liability and prove that they have the ability to cover it with their finances, then they really don't need insurance. But being self-insured is a little risky. So, I mean, we have homeowners insurance that we have to have for anybody who walks on our property. So, and we in the town don't necessarily want to accept the responsibility for everything that could go on in the town and cover we cover with people providing their liability insurance to assemble.
So Randy, unfortunately, in the world we live in, the town is you often susceptible, more often than not, for any little thing that somebody might want to sue the town for. And we just have to do all we can to protect the town from those lawsuits. So, and this is part of the way that we do that. So I think we have to have something in place. I can't see any way around it.
And I think, I mean, regarding the hockey that you brought up, or the rink, I think if somebody wanted to use that for the purpose of gathering, they would still need to apply for a permit. That's different than, you know, you can walk through a town park, obviously, without getting a permit. But if you're looking to assemble people, you're taking responsibility for all those people. So were somebody to, you know, put together a hockey game to happen on the rink that was, you know, intentional gathering, they would also need to get our permission and that permit.
So if I want to get 6 friends to meet me down on the Marble Works at one of the picnic tables to discuss my book, I need to get the permission of the town and get an insurance policy in order to have a discussion with my friends?
I'm not an attorney, but I think if you advertise it
As a public
as a
event.
public event and you're collecting people there and it's your book that you're trying to make a profit off of selling, I think the issues are completely different than gathering with 6 people sitting on the lawn and having a discussion. I think that's one, but I'm not an attorney, so maybe the attorney should be advising us also.
So what you're saying is we need to consult attorneys before we decide to convene a group of friends, or we need to get attorney input. I think you're just underscoring my point that this has become an enormous obstacle. And I do think there are other ways. I think the right questions haven't been asked. For example, is it possible for the town to put up the money to get a policy to which people who use these public spaces could become policy beneficiaries, instead of having each and every individual go out into the marketplace one by one and get this? I'm sure if the right question were asked, there would be a simpler mechanism, but I'm afraid the question is being framed as, again, not one of public access to public space, but of maintenance, of of risk, and it's discouraging. I mean, I certainly won't try. I mean, Kathleen's making it sound simple, but I spent 3 hours trying to figure out how to apply the advice I was given about go to my insurance companies, and it took days to get answers back, and it was still unclear when I got an answer back about whether they would write the policy if I were to apply.
Randy, I'm proposing exactly what you're suggesting, that the town, through its membership at the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, is giving people an affordable option to secure insurance in one place, to get a quote, pay for the insurance in one place. You don't have to go shopping around. Link right on the VLCT website for you to follow.
And also, Randy, when I was referring to contacting an attorney, I wasn't referring to somebody who wants to do something in town. I was talking about us as the town, referring it to our town attorney.
So what about people who don't have the ability to cough up $100? I mean, we're putting up a formidable economic barrier to people who do not have discretionary income. Why can't the town just purchase this on behalf of the individuals who would apply, instead of making people apply and then make some kind of case about a needs basis?
I think that's what Kathleen is proposing, that we have a fund available so that if there was an economic barrier and somebody wanted to get a permit, they could come to the town, they would be directed through the VLCT site, and the town would cover the cost of that fee for that person.
Doesn't the proposed draft say this is a temporary 2-month experiment?
Yeah, we'll try it and then see what happens.
Yeah, it's for basically the summer, June 1st through July 31st, right? Or August 31st, what did I say?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be good to see what the interest is, and the board could always extend it or cut it short if there are some issues.
I haven't seen this to be a massive issue. Apparently it has been for you, Randy, and I don't want to minimize the challenges that maybe you've had, but I've been on the board quite a while. And it behooves the town to know when there's a planned public assemblage and what it is and have some control over it. I get your idea of free speech and what, I'm not aware that we've done anything to stamp out free speech in our community. On the contrary, I think we promote it. When you're having an assemblage, there's always a purpose for it. And it's not 6 friends gathered around to discuss a book. And if it's not being run through the town so that we know of it and can control it, I mean, face it, these are different times than 50 years ago when I was growing up. And there wasn't such extreme views on a lot of things. So I think it's naive to believe that we don't need to protect the community, and I might have thought differently had I not seen people try to sue us for slipping on a road outside on town property. Frankly, it does happen, and I don't think anything you say would convince any of the board members that there isn't liability on the town's, there isn't potential liability on the town's, having something on the town's grounds. And so we're trying to figure out, how do you manage that liability and still provide free opportunity? And I think Kathleen has provided us a option that at least provides funding for people who can't afford to buy the rider. We've seen those applications are really easy for an assemblage permit, and you can come into the town offices and somebody would help show you that. So I don't buy that that's that difficult. The difficult part that you did speak to is getting a insurance policy, and now we've got a possibility where you can buy it directly through the town. So I think we have to try making steps and see how it works. But I don't see us just throwing out all controls over assemblages.
You have a hand in the audience.
Yeah, Leon Smith again. I just wanted to point out that the Marble Works is private property. So much, I know some folks confuse it as being a public space requiring permits, but most, if not all of everything that people think is public is actually private property. We've run into it ourselves at Town Hall Theater with being asked in the past to do assembly permits there, but it's not required. That's something that you have to work out with the landowner.
Thank you, Leon. That's a good point. There are a number of very nice privately owned places that I approached as well as college property if somebody wants to try. So thoughts by the board. I think it's time to move on this. Motion. If somebody would like to make a motion.
The board is for.
Okay.
I want to approve the proposed revision to the public assembly permit process and authorize the establishment of the children assistance pilot program running from June 1st to August 31st, 2022.
You like to care to comment on that? I think that makes sense. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Randy, I'll look for your comments after we try this and see if it goes smoother. Next is consideration of the next steps on the Dutton property. And let me make just a couple comments. We've gone out and we've done a walk of the property. I think everybody has seen the note from Leon. And I don't usually jump in before we get into discussion, but I'm hoping to just establish a little bit of a tone on this because we're being lobbied from both sides, right? I want to share my thoughts on this before and then open it up to the board. Our top priority is housing. And one of the things that impacts housing prices is the availability of buildable lots for sale. And we've just conserved a bunch more property in Middlebury. My opinion is that until we solve our top priority, we shouldn't be spending more money conserving more land. This particular parcel is a potential building lot as well. Now, I read Leon's notes with interest. I personally don't ascribe to what felt like a conspiracy theory to me. I think it's more appropriately couched in terms that we have some very passionate environmentalists and conservationists in our community, and they're active. And so naturally, they're going to be collaborative in their efforts to make strides in that way. But given the proximity to town and the fact that our number one priority is to develop some more housing, and we haven't solved that yet, and the fact of the significance and the cost, and something that's on our next board agenda as far as towns potential purchase of properties that are probably of more strategic interest to the town, then I recommend that we do not act on this at this time. That's my comments as your chair, and then I want to open it up to everybody to make comments. Dan.
I appreciate those comments. The issue, I agree with you. I understand that. I also understand that the money that we have set aside, we have money set aside and a fund specifically for conserving property, which has about $450,000 in it. And I've talked to Kathleen, and the precedence has been set once before that we did outright buy a piece of property and conserve it. But we typically don't do conserve property under our initiative and pay outright for it. As the Butler properties, I think we paid $30,000 for each of the properties, but the Vermont Land Trust did that. So my concern to me was, do we really want to spend this amount of money on this piece of property at this time that's this close to town when we've conserved other lands already? One concern I have is that I believe that the Conservation Commission and the Planning Commission have both voted on this and recommended we do this. It's still our responsibility to make the decision for the town, because we're the ones that are monitor the budgets and the money and of the ultimate authority. So I've been conflicted whether to do this or not do this. This is the first of anything I've seen like this come up when I've been around, but I appreciate your input, and my input tonight was not to act on this tonight.
Other comments?
Yeah, Brian, I exactly mirror your comments on this. I think that the most ecological way for people to live is close to where they work and consume services and do those things. And it's much better to have dense towns and large areas of conserved wilderness than 1 acre, 5 acre lots dotting the whole county. And the more people that we can get close to where they work and where they shop, the better for the environment as well as for our town. We obviously need places to recreate. We need outdoors. We live in Vermont. A huge part of that is because our environment is so wonderful and accessible and provides such quality of life. But we have a great trail all the way around our town. We have what feels like right now a great access to outdoor activity and recreation within our town.
We see if any of the boards, any other board has an alternate from you. What's on the board? Okay, Scott, can you come up with that?
Good evening. I'm Fred Dunnington. I worked for the town for 32 years and retired in 2012, 13. I wrote a letter to Kathleen that I didn't really intend to have to the board, but since it was published, I'm prepared to defend it. It really focuses on what was presented to you as a right of first refusal, and it's not a right of first refusal in the language, it's just an error. I would just say in my experience, I was involved in several conservation property projects over my time. And this is no precedent, I can assure you. But this is not affordable housing land. This is rock ledge. It's not on town sewers. The town is wonderfully blessed to have funds from the Battelle Trust or Conservation Fund. And it's really appropriate of all the things you'd spend that money on to use it to complement Battelle Trust land and protect the town. Right along the side of that town road is a property line. And that experience of walking up that road, were that to be developed, and isn't likely to be developed, it's forest conservation zone in the first place, but would be quite different. So what we found in the years I worked is that you have to take advantage of opportunities and use the resources you have at the time. Even though you may have other priorities, this has languished for a year since the offer was made. And I understand the wonder, should we do this? Should we conserve this property? That's always a challenge that boards have to think about. But, the steep rise in property prices that we're all appalled at experiencing is not getting better. And you might view this property differently than other acquisitions. I personally think that the land on the west side of the hill, up to the top of the hill, the power line, is really what protects the TAM and offers the best opportunity. I'd also comment that the real opportunity for affordable housing here is the 35 acres on Seminary Street Extension that is served by town water and sewer, and has the zoning density potential, the access to sidewalks and so forth for affordable housing. And if you put a lot of affordable housing in there, that housing will need additional recreational resource trails nearby. So this could complement your affordable housing efforts if you think about it in a different way. Anyway, you could view this property as having sort of two parts. The part on the east side of the hill really isn't as necessary for protection. That could be a building site, probably not for affordable housing, but for someone like the Parkers to develop something, small agricultural or woodland, or redo the sugaring operation there, clean it up. That you could acquire the property and sell off the part that is not as essential. You have the ability to do that with these funds. The town has used funds to, in all kinds of ways, including buying property, removing a house to protect the well site around Palmer Springs, for example. So you've done other things with these funds rather than just conserve everything. And I would just encourage you to think about the larger, longer-term view and the opportunity that you have, and what happens when you have to go back later, you know, and spend much more. So my comments were just really to clarify a mistake and the information that was presented to you. And of course, the discussions of strategy, and this ought to be executive session material for you as to how you formulate. These are just suggestions, and I wasn't really aware until just now that the board was really fundamentally revisiting the motions that it had made to proceed towards this a year ago. So those are my comments.
Okay, thank you, Joe. And I don't think anybody spoke that it's a never, but it's just, I think it's premature. And there's probably stuff that you're not aware of right now, since you've been out of the government for a while here. It's percolating, so I heard your comments. If there's nobody else that wants to speak to it, I think.
We know Mr. Smith,
Okay.
Mr. Leon Smith.
Hey, Leon.
Hello again, can you hear me?
Here you go.
Okay. I had a couple remarks that I prepared, and then I wanted to add a little bit of it in light of Brian's comments first. I don't see a conspiracy, Brian, and I don't have any enmity towards folks that are passionate. But what I do see is clear and open. When you had the Bushy parcel up for sale, the Conservation Commission, Planning Commission, nobody did anything. Nobody spoke about it. Who's developing and proposing the project? Then who develops the bike trails that also go through the Dutton parcel? In my opinion, that's a lot of conflict of interest on the part of certain individuals and on the part of certain groups that are sharing and are privy to information. In fact, the first time I even learned that the Dutton parcel was for sale was in the minutes of the Addison County Bike Club, because they had followed it. You know, it would take a full-time job to follow every minutes and everything in the meeting and of every commission and every board in this town. And folks that are on these commissions and committees are, in my opinion, overtly pushing agendas that don't align with necessarily all interests in the town, but are very parochial in nature. Not everybody is a member of MALT. Not every person uses different portions of the TAM trails in the same way. I, for instance, hunt on private property adjacent to the TAM trail, where I'm often disrupted by dogs that are running loose. In fact, I had a recent incident this year on the Dutton parcel where I was hunting in the snow. I was disturbed twice by people with dogs. I ended up having to displace myself, move. I finally gave up and said, well, you know, I'm going to go head home. On the way home, I ran into 6 deer running in a panic in a circle, because dogs and people have so stressed wildlife already in Means Woods and these areas. You've got these mountain bike trails through the top. My main concern with this purchasing of this parcel is I don't think the process by which the town is looking at conserving properties and the decision that's made is correct. I think, one, there's too many narrow interests involved in it. Where's the voice for biomass and timber harvesting? You know, where's the voice for, you know, like you said, these sugar works or housing developments? and things. The Conservation Commission, 6 members currently, and they all represent interests tied to the college or work at the college. Not that that's necessarily problematic. The college should be involved. But why do we have an employee of VIA on the Planning Commission and MALT on all the Planning Commission, Conservation Commission in this, and the college on all of these? I'm afraid that you're being steered towards a goal that is not in the town's best interest. And that goal particularly is 30% conservation and then eventually 50% conservation. You know, and I'm pretty much going to leave it there because I hope that the town doesn't move on this. But until the town figures out exactly how it needs to manage and use these parcels and how it comes about evaluating these parcels when they do come up for sale, I think it should be very hesitant about purchasing it and opening it up to just rampant use by a specific narrow group that's going to inflict long-term impacts on everything else. But I mean, I kind of went all over the place there, but I hope my point got across. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you, Leon. All your hands up. Okay, so I think we've agreed to suspend action on that and move on.
I think it would be interesting to talk about other real estate issues in a session that we can talk and how we can put all this together and
Yeah,
relate various properties together.
yeah. I'm not ready to say no, like a firm no, but I would like to have a conversation about our priorities and what resources we have available and how we're gonna move things forward, you know, with everything on the table, not just this.
And that might have to be an executive session.
Well, and frankly, I think Andy spoke to it, and then I think Leon kind of reinforced it, is that you know, we're looking at one parcel that comes up for sale, and why aren't we looking and having a larger conservation plan? And what is that? So, because we do have limited funds, so if we can conserve greater space for the money that we have, maybe what's the value?
Or what piece of property that might be up for sale that would be of greater value. I mean, in a more strategic location. Although this is pretty sweet right next to the wood.
So my understanding was that the seller came to town. I obviously wasn't here for this,
The
but
seller did come to the town.
yeah, so it wasn't a conspiracy or about us choosing which pieces we were interested in or being sure that they approached us with this offer.
The seller approached the town, the owner is in needing care,
Yeah,
and so there are certainly some situations that would make that drive to be something we would look at.
sure.
Oh, no, I thought somebody put their hand up.
Okay, we're gonna move on. Mission Square Retirement Plan Adoption Agreement. And we're being asked to authorize to sign the Mission Square Retirement Governmental Money Purchase Plan Adoption Agreement. Say that in one. Called Mission Square, formerly International City Managers Association Retirement Corporation. It's a 401 plan retirement savings option currently available to all full-time employees. We have to periodically, I think it's every 6 years, it says here, we have to kind of re-endorse it. Are there any questions? And I would direct them to Kathleen.
Is this what we should be doing? And then I assume this is not costing us any more money. It's just a part of a process to continue.
Right, this is an
retirement.
optional retirement plan that employees can choose to participate in.
Is this a defined contribution plan on top of whatever the existing pension defined benefit is?
Right.
Okay. Great.
No other questions? What's the motion here?
I move to authorize town manager Kathleen Ramsey to execute the Mission Square Retirement Governmental Money Purchase Plan Adoption Agreement.
Whoa.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Check warrants.
Yes, I have reviewed the check warrants and I move to approve total expenditures in the amount of $733,872.54. consisting of $631,465.26 for accounts payable and $102,407.28 for payroll for the period February 23, 2022 through March 8, 2022.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I have a question about this. I looked at a couple of invoices today. It's one of them is Sheehan Excavation.
What was that name?
Sheehan Excavation Company. They have two invoices. I think both of them were called, one at the Foot Street, I think. There was a water main break or something.
Oh,
So
yeah.
they have, I saw a charge, it said $1,000 for emergency call out. Is that normal
Like
to have
after
that
hours.
steep of it?
If it's an after hours emergency, yes.
No.
It's like a
I've
mobilization
seen those.
charge.
Yeah.
Well, there's probably a mobilization charge on top of that $1,000 charge.
There were charges of time and a half on everything else
And it
on
depends-
there,
what-
but
What was
the
the
first
time,
charge.
what was the time of day, do we know? We could ask Bill, if it's after hours,
Yeah.
then, yeah, there's a shift
It just
differential.
looked odd to me to see a charge of it, so.
I think you'll find, I think you'll find when you have an out of call, an emergency, number one, and you're losing water, you gotta get somebody there quickly. And then if it's after hours to fix that repair, there's gonna be some additional charges.
It seemed odd to me to make that steep, just for.
What was the total bill? I don't remember the detail from the
I
words.
don't know, I can't remember now, but the first item there were two invoices from the same company.
I'll go look at that. I'll find it in the warrants. It should be listed in the warrants, right?
Okay, so you're looking at that. Board member concerns, Bob?
I have no concern. I actually want to congratulate all three of you for getting elected. Andy, welcome to the board, and Lindsay, congratulations on being the vice chair. Look forward to working with you.
Dan?
The same congratulations to all the winners and welcome Andy. Already jumping in there, that's great, thank you. A couple other things. I think sometime we need to discuss masks, although we have no mask mandates for the community or anything. Kathleen sets the mask mandates for this building. And even though I'm a conservative and would continue to wear masks, it might be worth a discussion in future meetings of what we.
Well, I'm monitoring the CDC and I'm monitoring what the governor has to say, and so we'll change with the times.
Are we still moderate here in Addison
Yeah, we haven't been doing real well in Addison County.
Yeah, it might be the
Yeah,
kids
it
up
might be right up
there.
there.
The public schools are mask optional next
Next
week.
week.
Yeah.
The other thing, I know it's a international thing, but I'd like to at least speak up for the people of Ukraine and our concerns, and I firmly, as a 27-year retired senior military officer, firmly support the way our country has been proceeding, and it's the correct way to do it. The last thing is today is International Women's Day, and I'd like to recognize the 4 powerhouses that we have working with us here for what you give to us community. So, thank you.
Thanks, Dan. I would just like to say thank you to the voters for re-electing me for another 3-year term. I appreciate it. Congratulations to Esther and Andy too. I'm excited for 3 more years. I did find in the warrants those Sheehan excavating, I don't have the detail, I just have the total.
Yeah.
Given the size of the bill, I could see where there were $1,000 on each of those bills. I could see that might be a little bit high, but maybe we could just ask Bill for an idea of when the work was performed. Like, did they come out in the middle of the night?
It wasn't 6 p.m.
So
That
Or
was
was
an
it-
evening and a weekend.
Was it a
It was a
Sunday?
wicked one.
you know,
When
if it was an after hours event, I would be okay with it. If it's at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I think we might have pushed it a little bit. And in which case we could maybe just let Bill know that we need to evaluate that when he's calling somebody to come fix something.
I know that Bill is working on, perhaps a new approach to that, and we'll be bringing that to the infrastructure.
Sounds
I,
good.
I asked this with Deb and she thought it was, she was surprised when I pointed out, oh, that was deep. I came upstairs to talk to Kathleen, but she distracted me and I couldn't talk to her about that.
She does that.
It's,
It's a deflection.
I would just say it's not uncommon, but, you know, we would have to get more details and, maybe Bill
Sure,
can,
it's good to look into it.
absolutely. Hey, thanks for bringing it up. Thanks for looking at the bills that closely and questioning it, so.
It's a business. Anything else?
For me, no, thank you.
Esther?
So good to be back. Thank you to all those who voted. Andy, we had a good time out there freezing up.
Yeah.
But it's so good to see you. And of course, Heather, so good to have you. And Lindsay, so proud. So I'm honored to be here. And of course, honored to work with Kathleen.
Shucks. Yeah, it's, more of the same. Thanks so much to the voters of Middlebury. It really was a great time on Tuesday. Glad it was 10 or 15 degrees warmer than the year before. Yeah, I'm excited to be here and get to work and learn about what's going on here and where I can help.
Well, we're looking forward to having you roll your sleeves up. You already did.
First, congratulations to everyone again. And thank you for entrusting me with this role. I hope to do a good job, and if you've sat through any meeting that I've chaired, it's interesting. We get through it together. I wanted to mention that now, if anyone's out there listening, now is the time to start thinking about potentially town committees. I think sometimes it sneaks up on people, but now that we've gone through another cycle with the select board, we'll be looking at town committees. So just keep your eyes open for that. And especially since it is International Women's Day, you know, I just wanted to say to any women or moms out there that might be listening in, that any of us here would be happy to talk to you about how you can get involved more. It's not as much time as you would think, and it is doable, even if most of us here have kids at home. So even if it's even if you're busy, this can be a place for you, including on the Conservation Commission, as Leon brought up. It isn't, those positions aren't elected. They are selected by us. But if you are interested in conserving land in Middlebury, then that could be a place for you, and we make those decisions. So if you think you have something to contribute about how that is happening, then you should get involved. And that would be it.
Just a quick follow-up to Lindsay's comments about appointments. The select board will be making nominations to appointments to committees at its April 12th meeting, and then the appointments on the April 26th meeting. So people will be sending out, the town will be sending out an advertisement soon, and you should have your letters of interest in the first week of April.
Great.
So, and that'll be in the Addy.
Yes,
Okay.
and we'll put it out as an email blast.
Okay.
If I could just add, when I talked to Laura a little bit about the poll, I think she said that she had some people indicate on the Assembly poll that they were interested in some committee, and I just wanted to make sure that, I'm sure she's already forwarded that information to you, Kathleen, but if you haven't gotten it.
She's been working with Crystal in my office, and Crystal's keeping a list
Great.
of people
And actually, I meant to also bring up the town poll because we had hundreds of respondents this year. It was a big jump over last year. I spoke to Laura about it and she felt like probably offering it as an app, as something you could do online really helped. But she said, a couple hundred people filled it out on
Great.
paper at the polls and a bunch of additional people filled it out online. So we should have some good info to go on about the people.
Good. Well, you covered my.
Sorry.
Talk about the committees. And
No,
so-
sorry.
That's all right. I love it. It is International Women's Day. I had the honor of sitting on a panel discussion at Hannaford's on gender equity today. I was the only male on the panel. It was enjoyable to hear the different comments from other panelists. I've had the unique experience of having commanded many units in the military where gender equity has been something we've worked hard at for many decades. And so in all equity. So just along the lines of our DEI work, gender equity is as important as is all equity. So great day to recognize it. All the tremendous work that our team does.
So that is really hard to follow up with what I'm about to say. All of this uplifting stuff, but just a reminder that taxes are due in the finance office no later than 5 o'clock next Tuesday, March 15th. Please, thank you.
Okay. With that, I'll solicit a motion for adjournment. So,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
8:12. Missed Kathleen's party by 7 minutes.
Not bad.
There's some nice stuff too.
Well, good night, everyone.